Yeah, that's the big dog hunt. Hello again, everybody. Joe Staszak, along with my good friend Steve Kallas. Time for another episode of Kallas Remarks with yours truly and Steve Kallas. Week 11 in the NFL is upon us. Steven, how you doing, my friend?
All good, Joe. Great to be with you as always.
You know, Steve, there are teams that need to rebuild, and they lose a major player, or they're transitioning from a franchise quarterback to the next, passing the torch. And you'll hear about the 5-year plan or the 3-year plan, or give them some time to. They don't need to do that in New England, do they? Too much. All right. The GOAT goes away and they have one transition year. Next thing you know, they're 7-4 this year and are the best team right now, I think, in totality in most areas as an average in the league. 5 straight wins, and that defense just did a job on Atlanta the other night, 25-0. I mean, Bill Belichick, Matt Ryan must be having nightmares about, Bill Belichick and company. And Mac Jones, maybe he was the best prepared quarterback to step in right away. I mean, he makes the right reads. He sees where he needs to go. He doesn't make mistakes. You won't see him, throw down the field too much, 190 yards here, 185 yards there. A couple games, the defense had the biggest play in their respective games, but it doesn't matter. He doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't kill you. And here we are, 7-4, and they're killing folks. What do you think about the job Bill Belichick has done with this team?
I mean, the guy's a miracle worker. The big argument, who's more important, Brady or Belichick? Belichick or Brady? And then, Brady wins the Super Bowl, it had to be Brady. But no. This guy needed 1 year to reload. I thought Cam Newton couldn't throw the ball when he came back from COVID. I don't know if it was a shoulder injury or my imagination, but he didn't really have many weapons. To me, they still don't have many weapons. Kendrick Bourne is getting better. But, when you look at there now, they got the tight ends, Hunter Henry and Jonnu, but they have 2 damaging running backs now. These guys, Stevenson, I mean, they just run you over. Bolden has become the James White 3.0 because White's out for the season, but Bolden has replaced him admirably as a pass catcher, out of the backfield. So they have Harrison, Stevenson. You don't want to buy the third quarter. You don't want to tackle these guys. They're not great speed guys, but they'll hurt you. And Mac Jones is the right guy for the job. He's, to me, the NFL Rookie of the Year. He's certainly the best quarterback of all the rookies. And but Belichick's a magician. He's just, to me, and we've talked about it last year against the Chiefs, this year earlier in the year, they lost to Tampa Bay by 2. I think they could have won the Dallas game. They lost in overtime. And I'm watching these coaching jobs and going, these rosters don't compare. But now their defense is healthy and good. J.C. Jackson, one of the best corners in the league, got more interceptions than anybody in the league since he came in 2018. This Barmore, another Alabama guy, I think Nick Saban calls him up and says, Mac Jones can do it. He can be your quarterback. But this Barmore is really good too. You barely knew who he was. And he's a dominant defensive player now. Van Noy came back. Look at the game he had the other night. And don't forget, before 25-0, they were losing 7-0 to the Browns in the first quarter. They won 45-7. That's their last 2 games. So the arrow's pointing up. Belichick's a magician, and now we're no longer talking about great losses where Belichick did a good job, no moral victories. But they go to Los Angeles and they beat the Chargers 27-24. And that's kind of hurt the Chargers' season almost. They haven't quite recovered. The thing about the Patriots is they really hurt you, and it's hard for you to recover. Look what they did to Atlanta in the Super Bowl. I don't know if you saw the stats. I don't remember them, but they had the Patriots record since the Super Bowl against Atlanta, 28-3 in the third quarter, and Atlanta's record, and Atlanta just fell off a cliff. They never recovered. I don't even know, did Seattle ever recover from let me not give the ball to beast mode?
Malcolm Butler, yeah.
Let me throw the ball. Have they ever recovered? They certainly been nowhere near.
Usually you don't.
So I think he's the greatest coach ever. I think Brady's the greatest quarterback ever. You can debate whether he's the greatest football player ever. I'm still kind of a Jim Brown guy myself. He was a man among boys for 9 years and quit at the height of his career. But that's all irrelevant. I mean, Brady's 7-3 in the Super Bowl. That's incredible. And, he could have won a couple of those Super Bowls he lost. There's the helmet catch. There's the Mario Manningham catch. And there's the Corey Clement in the end zone, bobbles the ball, but the possession is still good catch.
Gene
Now,
Steratore, baby. Gene Steratore.
who's now an expert, right? Every Sunday. He's the expert now on TV.
Yes.
It's strange, but whatever. So yeah, the Patriots are for real. Everybody's kind of coming back to the pack. Maybe you tell me the Titans with that 6-game winning streak, but the Patriots are for real. The Patriots are good. My son picked Patriots Bucs before the year, and when they were 2-4, he was like, "Man, that's the dumbest pick I ever made." And now he looks like a genius at 7-4. But they do have very tough schedule coming up. Now that they got this win in Atlanta, but they have the Bills, they have the Colts, and then they have the Bills twice, and they have one other very tough game, string of 4. But you know what? They can go 4-0 in those 4 games now. They can catch the Bills. We had talked about that. I thought before the season they could challenge the Bills. That kind of disappeared after 2-4. But, I think I don't know that if they'll run the table, but right now, to me, they have the best defense in the NFL. And this kid doesn't make a lot of mistakes.
No, he does not. When you mentioned, Tom Brady, they look like they're going to be okay. I mean, the defensive secondary help back. Lost to Tyler Heineke the other day, who gave them the most problems the playoffs last year, Tyler Heineke. And one of those seasons, Tampa Bay goes into Washington, and Washington, comes out with a 10-point victory. Brady throws a couple early picks early on, holds a 90-second press conference. He's very upset. What are your thoughts on where Brady is and where the Bucs are going forward?
Well, it's any given Sunday. It's the Joe Staszak rule. It's unfathomable to me that they could lose to Washington. I mean, but how many times have we said it? Jaguars 9, Bills 6. You were saying before the show, 10 games off the top of your head, and you're right. I've never seen anything like this. I'm sorry. And I don't know if there's a way to really measure it, but it's
Not
like
this year. Hey, Steve, you're frozen a little bit. Why don't you try doing the video on and off again? Try and see if it jiggles you free a little bit. We're good. There you go. And then bring it back up. You'll be fine.
Let me try it again.
Yeah, try to jiggle on and off. Can you bring it back now?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, up there for some reason.
Maybe we should just go like this.
That's weird. That's your logo. When it comes off, you should pop up.
I don't know. Maybe we just go with you the rest of the way.
Okay. Okay. Well, you should. Okay. We'll see how it goes. You should pop up there. You keep trying that. I don't know why that's not.
Let's just keep going, Joe.
All right, man. So you're telling me, you're mentioning how crazy this year has been. It's in any given Sunday league, but I've never seen anything like this. And you're right about that. Tampa Bay goes in. Who would have expected that?
Nobody. Maybe Washington. Maybe.
Who's still looking for their quarterback? Are the Bucs going to be okay? I mean, Gronk's coming back from the ribs. I mean, they have depth. They have weapons. Antonio Brown will be healthy at some point soon. They're going to be okay with that defense?
I think they're going to be okay because I think they're going to get healthy in the secondary. I mean, they're down 2 or 3 guys now, and it's a different guy every year. What my son says about Gronk every year when he was a Patriot, they should just give him the first half of the season off and bring him in.
Why not?
Now, apparently he came back too early from the ribs and the back. But now, I saw him interviewed the other day, practiced fully on Thursday and Friday. He said, I feel good. The arrow's pointing up. I'm ready to go. So it looks like he's going to play Monday. you would think they shouldn't need him to beat the Giants, but you would think they shouldn't need him to beat Washington. And Washington kind of took Evans out of the game, except for that one touchdown. I think because you can now double Godwin, you can double Evans on the outside, and all they have left is the tight ends. And even the tight ends, Gronk's not there, but Brate's pretty good. OJ Howard's pretty good, but they're not, super tight ends unless Gronk is in the game. So I think they're going to be okay, but they got to get healthy. And, that's all we say on these podcasts. The sport doesn't matter. You got to get healthy.
You got to get healthy.
Just tell me who's going to be healthy when the playoffs start, and I'll tell you who's going to win. I mean, just to switch to the NBA for a brief second, LeBron comes back yesterday. They're 4-6 without him. They get beat by the Celtics by 25 or something. They give up 130 points, and LeBron is playing. And, so they're 8-8, I think, but whatever, they're LeBron missing 2.5 weeks, 10 games. I mean, when does that happen? So everybody, now he's getting older. I understand a lot of wear and tear, but my point being, whoever it is, just tell me if they're healthy. New Orleans is trying to juggle it with Trevor Siemian. And, I did watch some of that Titans game and then the highlights later. They got hurt by a couple of bad calls. And, and Sean Payton was livid afterwards. It always go back to me, in my mind, Sean Payton wanted to have potential replay on every kind of play all the time. And he would have challenged that, New Orleans got an interception in the end zone, but there was a questionable, I'll call it, roughing the passer call. Now, did he hit him in the head from behind? Maybe, but it was almost like a light shove as opposed to he didn't barrel him over or anything. And then there was another pass interference in the end zone. So they had 8 plays to score from, first and goal, which they did score. And he was livid after, but I always remember when they had the pass interference review for 1 year, and then the refs just stopped overturning. They didn't care. It didn't matter if it was egregious or not. They didn't care.
I remember.
And I remember Peyton being interviewed afterwards and saying, well, they weren't ready to look at every play, but I think next year they'll be ready to. And in fact, next year they got rid of the pass interference review. So, and that was because of the egregious call in that playoff game, which you'll remember.
Yeah.
But those are two good teams. I mean, New Orleans is good, even with Trevor Siemian. And we'll see if they might be able to catch the Bucs now because they seem to have the Bucs number. So it's a crazy year. It's very hard to pick games. I know we do it every week, but it's very hard to pick games. And, we're picking them now on Friday or Saturday. We used to pick them on Tuesday. So you know how tough that used to be. But I'm frankly just kind of waiting for the playoffs, doing my best. But, when you see Jaguars 9, Bills 6, I mean,
right?
You'll analyze that for 20 years and you won't figure it out.
Can't believe it. And you mentioned the Saints, their road to the Bucs. If there is a road to the Bucs, has to go through Philadelphia this weekend, where they're a 2.5-point dog to those dog-minded Philadelphia Eagles, coming off a huge win over Denver, who was coming off a huge win over Dallas. Hey, Vegas loves the Eagles, and they've been kind of right. As bad as I thought the Eagles have been, and they've gotten a lot better, I'll give them credit for that. Covered against Carolina and won the game miraculously. Covered to come back against Tampa, even though Tampa Bay took off the foot off the pedal. They got smoked by Oakland, and then whooped up on Denver, and and whooped up on Detroit. Killed both those teams on the road. They're 4-0 on the road. They haven't won at home, and now they played, like you said, they're a good Saints team. Trevor Siemian's okay. And 2.5-point dogs are favorites at home. The Saints are 2.5-point dogs on the road against Philadelphia. How do you like this game? And I know you have some Eagles stats, so it's positive ones we're going to hear about for once.
Well, the first good thing for the Eagles is Kamara's not playing.
I know.
That's a big loss.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are 3 stats from Sal Pal. He was so funny on that NFL matchup show, which is a great show, that he said, "Oh, my producer's telling me I got to get out quickly now, but this is the first time we talked about the Eagles in weeks and weeks, so I'm going to give you a few stats." And here they are. The Eagles over the last 3 weeks, number one in points per drive, number one in rushing yards per game, number one in third down conversions at 54%.
Wow,
That's your Philadelphia Eagles.
that's
So
crazy.
they're, look, they're legit. They're in kind of a bad division. Will Dallas come back to the pack? I think we're going to find that out this week. They slaughtered Matt Ryan. I don't know if Atlanta's waving the white flag, but Matt Ryan's taking the beating. He's not waving the white flag, but he's terrible. And I don't think it's his fault necessarily. But I think we'll find out more about Dallas this week. But clearly Washington's been a huge disappointment. The Giants are, I think, kind of what you expected. I don't know what you expected them. Barkley can't get on the field. So can the Eagles make a run? Well, they're going to have to win a lot of games in a row, kind of like what the Patriots did at 2-4. They won 5 in a row, and now their schedule gets tough. They got, I think, 2 fairly easy games towards the end. But I don't think the Eagles are the Patriots, and they don't have the, how do I say this, coaching knowledge that the Patriots have. Because the Patriots, I'm telling you, any game, they can win any game. So it doesn't surprise me when they almost beat Dallas or they almost beat Brady when he came back. None of that is surprising. And I've looked at his games over the last 2 years and said that Chiefs game last year should be in the Belichick Hall of Fame of coaching games, even though the guys won 6 Super Bowls. And so too earlier this year, but now they're winning those games. They beat the Chargers in Los Angeles. They crushed the Browns. But now they do have, again, they got 2 with the Bills. And it's kind of unfortunate if you're a Bills fan, you would have rather played the Patriots early. Don't forget, Miami's only win until like last week was 18-17 over the Patriots in week 1. So the Patriots could easily be, they could easily have 2 or 3 more wins. But they're rolling now. You don't want to play them now. You don't want to play them in the playoffs. I saw their chances to make the playoffs before the Atlanta game was 83%, which struck me as high. But now they're 7-4. They got 2 games they shouldn't lose at the end, 9-4. And these next 4 games at Indy, I think they can beat Indy in Indy. What is Belichick going to do to Carson Wentz?
Yeah.
So sky's the limit for the Patriots. But you know what? The Eagles they're a good football team. You got to give them credit. And their defense has played really well. And I think a lot of it comes to running the ball and giving Jalen Hurts some opportunities to throw, but to run as well, to use his feet. And it looks to me like Hurts and Justin Fields in Chicago are getting better. You got to give them a year or 2, which is what they need. And nowadays, I can't give them a year. I need to win now. It's a different world now. Everything's got to be right now.
Right.
But yeah, the Eagles are legit, I think.
I never thought I'd say that this year, but they are a team that has improved. They're running the football a lot better. Jordan Howard, for some reason, was on the practice squad, is now being incorporated as a key part of that offense. We'll see what happens when Miles Sanders comes back. They do have, if you want to call it a bad problem to have, they have 4 decent running backs, good depth chart there in the backfield. You mentioned the Chiefs. For as bad as they've been, they're 6-4. They're poised to make a playoff run. Came out of it seemed like they got it right for the first time in a long time last week against Oakland. Patrick Mahomes, 5 touchdowns, no picks. Interesting game here because their defense, I need to see their defense, play well against a team with a lot of weapons. I believe Amari Cooper's out with COVID.
Right.
I think I saw that. Yes. But they are 2.5 points. Again, Vegas loves the Chiefs. Another favorite at home, 2.5 against the Cowboys. Cowboys 7-2. Some people think they're the best team in the league, or at least the NFC. What do you think about this game?
Well, that's the Cowboys who are losing. Were they losing 30-0 to Denver? Is that the Cowboys?
Yeah. Same team. The one that got smoked by the Eagles the next week, the Denver team.
I'll say it again. I hope somebody does some kind of analysis of these things because I don't think it's ever. I understand any given Sunday, but my goodness, this year you've just had some, the Jets have 2 wins. They beat the Bengals and the Titans. Titans are probably the best team in football right now without Derrick Henry. So it's a crazy year. But I think the Chiefs, the question is, look, they played the Giants 3 games ago, and if they were playing 15 other teams or even 20 other teams besides the Giants, they would have won. I mean, the Chiefs would have lost. They won 20-17. against the Giants. And then the next week, they got Green Bay without Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers plays, I think they win that game easy.
Packers win that game.
Right. So the Chiefs have been very lucky. But this past week, 41-14, as you said, 405, 5 touchdowns, no picks. Mahomes, for the first time in a while, looked like Mahomes. And I think we find out this week against a good team like Dallas, and Dallas's defense has been very good.
Mhm.
They were, how much do you want to score on me defense last year? But they've turned it around. So I think you're right. This is a good test. It's a game I wouldn't touch because if the Chiefs are back, I do like the Chiefs, but if they're not back, Dallas is a team that can beat them and beat them handily. So we'll just have to see how that's going to shake out. But yeah, because as bad as the Chiefs have been, in my estimation, with that win, they're in first place in their division. So
6-4.
right. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's a fascinating game. I agree that is the game of the week. But if the Chiefs are the Chiefs, they can certainly get back into it. In the AFC, it's so weird. And as good as the Titans have been in a playoff game without Henry, I think that's going to be different because I'm still not confident of Tannehill as a big-time quarterback.
I agree. Well, we shall see. All right. Time for our pick segment, my man. It's really been difficult this year. How'd you do last week? What do you got this week?
No good. 1-2 again, but I'm going to go right to the picks for this week. Hope springs eternal. I'm taking Miami -3.5 at New York. A lot of people think the Jets can win this game. Joe Flacco is going to start, but I can't remember the last time Joe Flacco played. Yeah. And Miami has a pretty good defense. You know, they've been playing better of late. I don't know if it's Tua or Brissett. They're both injured to some degree. But again, they're playing better. They fell off a cliff after beating the Patriots in week 1. I think they lost like 7 in a row. I'm also taking Cleveland at Cleveland. I'm going to go -11.5. I've seen anywhere from 9.5 to 12.5. But after watching Detroit, and I turned on that game late because maybe they can win. But again, they were playing the Steelers without Big Ben. They won the turnover battle 3-0. They had a kicker who not only missed 2 extra points, which would have stopped them from going into overtime, but also missed a 48-yard field goal badly in overtime, which would have won the game. So if you can't beat the Steelers without Big Ben, when you win the turnover battle 3-0, all you need is a kicker to make an extra point or a field goal in overtime. And Cleveland they've been blown out a couple times this year, and the game after the blowouts were always blowouts for Cleveland. So I'll take Cleveland -11.5. And I'm going to go Baltimore 5 at Chicago. I understand with Chicago and Justin Fields, and they're starting to find their way. But the Ravens have a very good defense. And unfortunately, I'm sure you heard this, Khalil Mack is out for the year now. He's going to have foot surgery. So no Khalil Mack to kind of contain, if you will, Lamar. Lamar was sick a couple of days this week, not COVID, but he was good to go on Friday. And I think they have to get back on the right track. They've been another weird team to kind of look at and watch. But yeah, those are my 3 picks: Miami, Cleveland, and Baltimore. How about you?
All right. Well, I think I had an extra game last week. Not that I needed one. 1-3 last week. I like Green Bay this week. I think their defense showed a lot in that Kansas City game and Aaron Rodgers and whatnot. 1-point favorite over the Vikes on the road. They seem to, well, as Aaron Rodgers will tell you, he owns Chicago. I think he owns Minnesota as well. 1-point favorite over the Vikes. Vikes really kind of up and down team this year. They're coming off a Chargers win, but again, I'll take it's almost like a pick 'em. I'll take Aaron Rodgers over Kirk Cousins, even though I like Kirk Cousins. We both do. Seattle scores no points against Green Bay last week, which is one of the reasons I like Green Bay this week. And Arizona, I think, is a good squad, although they did get squashed last week by Carolina. I think they bounced back. 1-point favorite over the Seahawks. And again, I'm not buying it yet on the Eagles. I'm just not. So I'm going to go with the Saints plus the 2.5. I think overall they're a better team. Eagles, for some reason, have struggled at home. I don't know if this is a season where the Eagles are just going to go up. Oh, there you go. Hi. Like this, I think they're maybe, take a few steps back before they keep continuing to go up. So I'm going to go Green Bay -1, Saints plus 2.5, Arizona -1. Those are our pick 11 weeks in the NFL. Before we wrap up, baseball, a little bit of news this week. Shohei Ohtani, AL MVP, and Bryce Harper, local boy, paying him $330 million. He wins an MVP. He hasn't gotten him into the playoffs, but whatever. It's a personal award. It's nice. It's nice to know that they have a good player on the team. But your thoughts on the MVPs?
We've talked about this for years. To me, look, Ohtani was great. Harper was great. They're not the MVPs. They're the MOPs. They're the most outstanding players. What were the Angels this year with Shohei Ohtani having one of the greatest seasons ever, you could argue, in the history of baseball? It was 77 and 85. I'd make an argument Mike Trout's the MVP because look how bad the Angels were without him. So they're 77 and 85. They're fourth out of fifth in their own division. They're 15 games out of a wild card, Joe.
So how is he the MVP? Right. You make a great point.
And Bryce Harper, and he was fantastic. He was the MOP. But Bryce Harper, the Phillies were 82 and 80 in a horrific division. The Braves won the division and the World Series. They won 88 games. So Phillies second by default, 82-80. Why? The Marlins reverted to being the Marlins. The Nationals waved the white flag, right? They traded everybody at the trade deadline, including Scherzer. So they gave up. And the Mets, who were riding high, they fell off a cliff. They were horrific. So you have one guy who's in the worst division, 2 games above 500. You have another guy who was 77 and 85. And again, Ohtani is great. But I've said for decades now, you want to give out a most outstanding player award, give out a most outstanding player award. Now you can argue correctly because in second and third in the AL was Guerrero Jr. and Simeon. And they didn't make the playoffs, but that's because they were in the wrong division. The Yankees and the Red Sox tied for second behind Tampa with 92 wins. I think Toronto had 90 or 91 wins. But my point being, even they didn't make the playoffs. I've written articles where I think, especially today where you have so many teams in the playoffs, it's kind of hard to tell me you're the MVP when you had 5 or 6 different ways to get into the playoffs. And you don't. And the Angels weren't close. Philly wasn't close. So, I mean, Philly was close. You could say they were 6 games behind the Braves. But that was one of the worst divisions in baseball. So I just find it very disappointing every year. If you're going to have a most outstanding player award, great, have one. I don't know who you give the MVP award to, but I'm sure I could find somebody. And if I looked in all these teams that made the playoffs, there has to be somebody. And so I think I don't want to take anything away from Ohtani. Harper was great. I don't want to take anything away from him. But don't tell me guys who are 8 games under 500 or 2 games over 500 in the terrible division, don't tell me they're the most valuable players because what? If Ohtani didn't play, they would have won 71 games instead of 77. What about if Trout did play? And the Phillies, without Harper, they wouldn't have won 82 games. They would have won, I don't know, 76. You have to go look up their WAR, their seasonal WAR.
Wins above replacement.
But I just find it disappointing every year. And Ohtani was unanimous. Now, he was unanimous because not even Babe Ruth did what he did in terms of pitching and hitting. But to what end? They were never a factor. Never a factor, the Angels. Philly might have been maybe a factor. You know better than me.
For a little bit.
But I just find it very disappointing, that's all. And maybe I have the wrong take on this, but you'll never convince me that the best player in the league. Look, you go back to Ernie Banks in the late 50s. He won back-to-back MVPs, and back then it was 8 teams. The Cubs weren't even in the top half of the division, the top 4. I think they were like 5th and 6th or 6th and 7th those 2 years. So it's been going on forever. But that doesn't make it right. And I'll say it again. I think it specifically says in the rules you don't have to make the playoffs to be the MVP.
Right.
But to me, that's almost contrary.
It's silly.
What kind of statement is that?
It's silly.
So, but, I give Ohtani all the credit in the world. Should he have been a unanimous MVP? No. Should he have been a unanimous MOP? Yes. And I think Harper was the best player in the National League this year. But you'll never convince me guys who are under 500 or near 500 are the MVPs of the whole league.
Right.
You'll never convince me of that.
Too lazy to change that acronym. Great stuff, man. We'll catch you next week. You can catch Steve on his Facebook forum page, Speaking of Sports with Steve Kallas. You can follow me on Twitter at JoeStaszak4799. You can also see some of his videos on WestChesterCountyPost.com on YouTube. You can catch this podcast on YouTube each week. We usually tape on Friday. Today we're taping Saturday, and you can catch us there. Appreciate it, Stephen. Great job as usual, man. Enjoy the game. Talk to you soon.
Always a pleasure, Joe.
All right, folks. Have a good weekend, and we'll catch you next week.